With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Gustavo Souza Marques, who is an assistant professor of musicology at U of M. He's here tonight to discuss his recently released book, Tyler, the Creator's Hip-Hop Revolution, Beyond Gangster. Without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Marques.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. That's very exciting. I have been working on this book for 10 years. Wow. It started as a PhD project back in Ireland in 2016. So it's a big moment for me to be here today presenting this book to you all. So thank you so much. And before I continue, I'd like to say thanks to AADL for opening the doors for me this evening and having the chance to present my book to you. I want to say thanks to the Society for American Music as well for this very big initiative celebrating more than 200 years of American music. And of course, hip-hop is a very important part of that history, and that's why I decided to bring this event as part of Sam's initiative, Sounding the Nation at 250. Okay, and by the way, I have some books being sold outside. I brought 4 copies, and I have this 5th copy right here. Please stay until the end, because at the end, I prepared a final slide with a Q&A session, and the best answer is going to earn a free copy, wow. Okay? So please stay until the end so you can take that opportunity. All right, so before we move on, I don't know how familiar you are with the career of Tyler, the Creator, but especially his early musical work is super controversial. He invested a lot in shock value narratives, and this is going to be part of my presentation today, especially regarding his music videos. For instance, in my book, one theoretical frame that's very important and very central to my discussion is media studies. And most of Tyler's music videos, especially during his early career, they can be quite controversial. And because of that, before I start, I wanted to have this content warning for us, okay? However, the idea is not to judge Tyler or judge his music, say it's bad or good, positive or negative. That's not the idea. The idea is to create a broader discussion approaching his artistic and cultural inputs as well, okay? So let me start giving a brief idea of all the points that I'm going to cover today. First of all, I will give a brief introduction to hip-hop history, just to better contextualize the musical work of Tyler, the Creator, in case you are not familiar with hip-hop and not familiar with his musical work. Of course, I will explain a little bit who Tyler is, why it is important to talk about his music, and I'll share a little bit my own motivations on writing about his musical work as well. Of course, that I will give an overview of each book chapter today as well. And as I already said earlier, we are going to approach some of his controversial audiovisual productions, okay? At the end, of course, I will share the key conclusions that I found by researching his musical work. It was a very interesting journey for me, and I'll talk more about that later as well, and why we can consider Tyler as a game-changing figure in hip-hop culture. And as I said, at the end, we'll have a very short and small discussion section, and in that discussion section, you have the chance to earn a free copy, okay? So, overview of hip-hop history. So hip-hop culture and hip-hop history both are very interesting because they are a transnational culture that involved the participation of 3 main groups: Black Caribbeans, Black Americans, and Latinos, especially Puerto Ricans. And a very good example of that was the first hip-hop party that ever happened in the South Bronx, sorry, in the Bronx, in New York City, that was organized by Jamaican DJ Kool Herc. He was born in Jamaica but grew up in New York. So since day one, hip-hop culture was a transnational culture that went beyond the US itself. And this is not a coincidence. There's a reason why people of color in that context of the Bronx during the early 70s, they were together. And that is mainly because of the impact that the construction of the Cross Bronx Expressway had in that region, in that neighborhood, that severely impacted the cultural and the socio-economical life of that region, mainly because the expressway was constructed in the middle of the neighborhood, so it impacted a lot the dynamics of that place, leading to urban decay and a phenomenon that many scholars refers as white flight. So white flight basically means that the only ones that had the financial conditions to escape that new situation of urban decay in the South Bronx were white Americans from the middle classes. And that they leave the neighborhood behind for black Americans, black Caribbeans, and Latinos that were the main immigrants moving to the South Bronx during that time. And of course, that in that new scenario of urban decay, there was a rise in street gang violence, and that's why hip-hop culture became so important for that community, because instead of having street gangs fighting each other, they started to use hip-hop battles to channel all that violence that was happening in the streets in a very positive manner. So hip-hop was very revolutionary and very transformative for people in the South Bronx during that time. And when I'm talking about hip-hop battles, I'm referring to MCing battles like rap battles, DJ battles, graffiti writing battles, and break dancing battles as well. So that was the right way to channel all that violence that was happening in the streets in a more constructive and positive manner as well. Even though rap music and hip-hop culture have been very diverse since day one, during the late 80s, gangsta rap took over the music industry for many reasons, including political reasons, because during that time, the US was going through a moment of heightened austerity, and that austerity that was known as Reaganomics during the government of Ronald Reagan, and that moment of austerity impacted people of color, of the working classes in different American cities, and gangsta rap emerged as a response to that climate that was happening in the US. And there was one problematic feature of gangsta rap, which was that black American rappers were capitalizing on stereotypes connecting the black youth to urban violence. And they did that as a response to all the media sensationalism that was happening during that time, portraying the black youth as dangerous and many other negative portrays of that group in the US. And I am explaining that because one of the main concepts of my book is the idea of Beyond Gangsta. So basically, I claim that Tyler, the Creator, is a Beyond Gangsta artist, because even though at the beginning that strategy utilized by gangsta rappers were very interesting because it made gangsta rap visible in American society, later it became crystallized in very problematic stereotypes. And Tyler, since day one, he has been pushing away those gangster-related stereotypes away from his musical work. And just to give you an idea, when I say gangster rap, what I'm talking about, I will play one of the most iconic gangster rap songs to this day, which is Straight Outta Compton by NWA. And another connection between Tyler and previous phases of gangster rap is the fact that both were born in LA. So Tyler was born in LA, and gangster rap was popularized in LA as well. And something that's very important to be said before I move on and before I play the music video, I'm not going to go too deep on that, but I think it's a very curious and interesting information, is that the roots of gangster rap is actually located in Philadelphia with the musical work of Schoolie D. And many people doesn't know that. When they think about gangster rap, they think it was that emerged in LA, but that's partially true, okay? And let me play this music video very quick.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube. From the gang called niggas with attitudes. When I'm called off,
and as you can see by the video, the lyrics, and the sounds as well, the idea of looking hard and tough was very important during that moment of gangster rap music, and there is a reason for that. It was the way that Black American rappers was sending the message that they would resist the oppression that they were describing in the lyrics. And Tyler also opposed to that idea that Black American rappers always have to look hard and tough, as I will discuss in this presentation today. Okay, and who is Tyler the Creator and why I developed that idea of Beyond Gangsta, which is the subtitle of my book. So, of course, even though Tyler is also from LA, he didn't grow up in areas that are referred as ghetto or stereotyped as inner city. He grew up between Hawthorne and Ladera Heights, which is a little bit different from places like Compton and South Central LA. And this plays a role in his opposition to gangster-related stereotypes as well. And another thing that we need to consider is that Tyler is an internet phenomenon. So he emerged in a different moment, not like in the late 80s, in which being part of the larger music industry was central to achieve success as an artist and as a musician. And something interesting about the way he became an internet phenomenon is that since day one, and he started very young, he was only 16 years old when he formed and led Odd Future. They're not active anymore, but anyway, they were very influential during the late 2000s, especially on the internet. But something that's very interesting about his career is that since day one, music critics were pointing out how he was far beyond everyone else in the group. I'm not saying this because I agree with that statement. I just think it's a very interesting statement considering how far Tyler got as a very iconic contemporary hip-hop artist. Another thing that we need to consider regarding the success of Odd Future, it wasn't only because they sounded very different from everyone else and looked very different from everyone else if we are talking about the audiovisual productions, but also the shock value element of their lyrics. The initial lyrics were very problematic. They were replete of homophobia and misogyny. And you know how the internet is, how digital culture is. Of course, that played a role in their success as well because caused a lot of controversy, okay? And now is the part where I want to explain how I became interested in the musical work. So, at the beginning, I wasn't paying enough attention to the lyrics because at that time I had my initial limited English, so I wasn't paying too much attention on the lyrics, but I was very attracted by their sonic and visual uniqueness. So I just had a sense, an impression, or maybe even intuition that they were very different from everyone else. And only later, when I concluded my master's in Brazil and started to study in Ireland as a PhD student, that I went deeper in the lyrics and discovered how problematic they were. So at the beginning, I had the benefit of doubt. And this is something that I discuss in the intro of my book as well. And as my study progresses, it was very valuable for me from a personal perspective to study the musical work of Tyler the Creator, because Tyler the Creator explores his own identity in a very open manner, and one of the aspects that he explored in his own identity are the racial aspects. So for me, as an Afro-Brazilian with light skin that grew up in an environment that many people would label me as white just because I'm not brown enough, and as a mixed person, I always found that very confusing. And now in Brazil, we are changing our perspective on racial identity, so it's not like that anymore, but when I was growing up in the 90s, was like that. And because Tyler also creates this very interesting discussion between whiteness and blackness in his musical work, I think it was very valuable for me to study his musical work as well. So as I said, I was going to explain why I decided to study his music And this is one of the main reasons I decided to do that. Okay, Tyler, in his early career, when he wrote those very problematic lyrics, replete of homophobia and misogyny, there's another racial element regarding those lyrics, is that he projected his most bizarre texts over his white alter ego, named Wolf Haley, and that alter ego Wolf Haley was generally represented as a skateboarder, and Tyler himself, he was a skateboarder as well, and I'm going to explore that a little bit more in the next slide. But this is important to be said because skateboard culture itself, it's a very paradoxical and ambiguous culture, because at the same time that skateboard culture is considered as an anti-establishment culture, it also emphasizes hegemonic values related to masculine domination and hypermasculinity and things like that. So skateboard culture was the perfect place for Tyler to work his own contradictions and dichotomies as well, and this is something that I explore in my book. Because at the same time that he had all those bizarre lyrics projected over his white alter ego, he had many other lyrics replete of humor and self-loathing, representing his real self that counterpointed all that problematic discourse. And that playfulness, because Tyler is always able to range between so many different topics in his career, that playfulness anticipated his queer identity. So the career of Tyler is, the arc of the career of Tyler the Creator is very interesting, because he starts with those very problematic discourses, but later when he comes out as a queer artist, he's able to overcome all that problematic discourse of his early career. So I'm going to play a small excerpt of an old Odd Future song from 2008, from the first mixtape, the Odd Future tape, Back for Another One, and I want you to pay attention on the lyrics, because the first couple of verses are rapped by Casey Veggies, that was part of Odd Future as well, and then Tyler comes in with some very playful verses that swings between braggadocio and self-loathing and humor as well, okay? So pay attention in this example, and then I'll show you another example.
Volume 2, I'm crazy lyrically. Come get at me seriously. Niggas know I kill them mentally and spiritually. I hope you're hearing me. First mixtape was hot. I hope you're fearing me. Believe that. Y'all niggas didn't believe that he rapping. Now y'all bob your heads to the things that he rap. Y'all niggas didn't believe that he rap, and now y'all bob your heads to the things that he rap. This nigga hated and she clapped. No handshake, sleep that.
Back for another one. Back for another one.
Damn.
Back for another one. Back for another one.
Yeah, because I'm
Back for another one. Back for another one.
damn.
Back for another one.
And now Tyler comes in.
Back for another one.
Damn, back for another one with robots. I'm so hot, you're cold, now here's a fucking sweater. Look, I can't have no other fun with my props, probably cause he out with his other son. But I'm super steezy like my last beat, my bitch super greasy like her lunch meat granola bars. I spill healthy verses, call them granola balls. Now every bitch wanna eat her Casey veggies with no salt. Nah, it's so crazy. Other people than my mom's is calling me baby. My nigga, get your hopes down. He couldn't persuade me to collaborate with you niggas. Your lyrics is lazy. I'm undefeated, but the suede shoes is Puma. I'm the cancer and the tumor with the drums and the tumors blasting. I'm a crook and it's a castle. If I am the shit, then I'm guessing my mom's an asshole. Because I'm
Back for another one.
So basically he has some type of verses that wouldn't be common in hip-hop at all. And regarding being not common in hip-hop at all, we also have to consider his psychologizing and very open and very vulnerable texts as well that were part of his early career. And for instance, in his album Bastard, in which he opens up about his experience of growing up without a father, he brings a lot of vulnerability that wasn't common in hip hop at all, especially if you are thinking about how gangsta rappers in previous eras was always trying to look hard, tough, and emotionally numb as well. So in that sense, Tyler was already changing the game of hip-hop culture since his first album, Bastard. And after that, I have quick comments, like I'm trying to not make this presentation too academic, but I need to talk about two authors, which is Frantz Fanon and Du Bois, after we listen to this second example here.
Well, Tyler, hi, I'm Dr. TC, and I'm guessing that your teacher sent you here to talk because you were misbehaving. It's going to be 3 sessions, today, tomorrow, and the next day, so just tell me something about yourself. Well, look, if you don't talk, I mean, these sessions are gonna go slower, so.
This is what the devil plays before he goes to sleep. Some food for thought, this food for death, go ahead and fucking eat. My father's dead, well I don't know, we'll never fucking meet. I cut my wrist and play piano cause I'm so depressed. Somebody called a pastor, this bastard is so possessed. This meeting just begun, nigga, I'm Satan's son. My mother raised me a single parent, so it's apparent that I got love for my mother. None of you other fuckers are much important. I'm getting angrier while recording. I'm feeling like the bulls. I got a gang of wolves. Our futurist children that's fucked up in they mental. Simple will probably not fuck them.
Yeah, you can have an idea what I'm talking about. And for those who are arrived later, I want to say that I had a slide saying content warning. So like, Tyler, the Creator can be quite transgressive in his lyrics, so please, like, don't be afraid or anything like that of this presentation. But before I move on, because like this slide is very important to understand my book, I was explaining earlier how Tyler was playing with tropes related to whiteness and tropes related to blackness. And when I figured that out way ago as a PhD student in Ireland, I couldn't avoid thinking about black scholars like Frantz Fanon, who wrote the very iconic book, Black Skin, White Masks, that also discuss that racial dynamic in a very deep manner in his writings. But also, and Frantz Fanon is not American, he's from Martinique in the Caribbean, but also in the Black American world, in Black American intellectuality, we have a very iconic intellectual and scholar, which is Du Bois. He wrote the book, The Souls of Black Folk. And as I said, I'm not going to make this presentation too academic, but in that book, he has a very interesting concept that's closely connected to the idea of black skin, white masks, which is the concept of double consciousness that also explores that racial dynamics between the white and black world, especially in the US. And as we are going to see in this presentation later, Tyler explored that dynamic in a very graphic manner in his music videos as well. Okay? Sorry. All right. So I will explain chapter 1 and 2 together because they are interconnected in my book. So basically the name of chapter 1 is Oversaturation with Gangsta related stereotypes. And by the way, in the intro of my book, I explained that I wasn't able to cover any material after Chromacopia. Actually, in my book, I say that as I write these final lines, Tyler is releasing his new album, Chromacopia. So I wasn't able to explore any material from that album. But I do have some interesting comments about that album at the beginning of my book. Okay, so the main idea of chapter 1 is to explore why Tyler and his peers, especially his odd future peers, they felt oversaturated with gangsta-related stereotypes. And one of the things that I figured out during my research is that they grew up not listening to NWA, Dr. Dre, Tupac Shakur, or anyone like that. They were more focused on alternative hip-hop artists like Pharrell Williams, Missy Elliott, MF Doom, Eminem, especially the psychologizing lyrics that Eminem developed as well with his Slim Shady character. They had a lot of influence on Tyler, the Creator, even though Tyler also grew up in LA. And once again, this goes back to digital culture and media and how hip hop was already being consumed during that time. Another thing that I considered in my first chapter is my own ethnography in LA, especially as a skateboarder myself. I was able to skateboard in LA. I was able to meet Tyler in person for 30 seconds. It was a very interesting experience because I went to his shop twice. He has a clothing line. The name of the shop is Golf in Hollywood, in Fairfax Avenue. And I went there like in a crazy attempt to see him in person. And it actually worked because when I tried for the second time, he entered the shop. Everyone was like speechless without reaction. And I was like that as well. But I said, oh, I came here because of that. I have to move. I have to do something. And I shout at him. And because I already left like to the kitchen or something like that of the shop. And I shout and say, hey, Tyler, I came from Brazil just to see you. And he came back to the center of the shop where I was, shook my hand, and said, welcome to LA. And I said, okay, I'm writing a PhD research about your musical work. And he said, that's very cool, but I gotta leave. And he left, and that's it. And hopefully one day I will have the chance to talk to him better. But anyway, yeah, I also consider like skateboard culture in LA. LA is a reference in skateboard culture, so it's not by chance that all these ambiguities that I was exploring earlier in this presentation also appears in the musical work of Tyler, the Creator, because he was also a skateboarder, and also the fact that he was a skateboarder and I am a skateboarder as well. Of course, that it helped me to become a fan of his music initially, just going back to something I was exploring earlier. And it's interesting that as soon as Tyler started to soften his lyrics, especially in his third album, Wolf, he abandons his skateboarder persona and embraces a biker persona. And I have a big discussion on that in my book, which I find very interesting because his biker persona is in the woods, so it's not anymore in the urban environment of LA. It's way more peaceful than his Wolf Haley persona. He doesn't talk about homophobia and misogyny anymore. And as he progresses as an artist, he kind of leaves behind skateboard culture and all the negative aspects related to that. And not by chance, in his album Flyer Boy, like even the covers are somewhat similar. They look like somewhere in Southern California, you know. And that album was the watershed for album as a person and as an artist as well, because it was the album that he came out as a queer artist. And in my book, I have a discussion on that, on how skateboard culture can be connected to hypermasculinity and how Tyler, little by little, overcome that in his musical work. In the second chapter, as I said, they are interconnected, and it's not by chance that I gave the name Riding the Web. So riding is a reference to skateboarding, sorry. And in that chapter, I show how both realms, like real life and the digital world, both are very important for the success of Tyler, the Creator, because he was able to explore really well in a very successful manner. That's very obvious because he's one of the most iconic hip-hop artists right now. But he was able to explore quite well in his musical work three tropes that works really well in digital culture, which is shock value. You know how the internet is. We talked about that earlier. Intimacy as well with his vulnerable texts, but also the comedy sketches that he used to post on Tumblr, on YouTube, and used to garner a lot of attention for Odd Future in his solo career as well. And this is all part of the digital attention economy that we are experiencing right now. And Tyler internet savvy is really something else, because like he has no like degree in social communications or anything like that. He was just a very brilliant young guy that was exploring digital culture in a very effective manner. And we can see how far he was able to go. And in my book, I also discuss the concept of transmedia. So transmedia is how artists, for instance, Tyler started on the internet, but later he was able to migrate to television. Because of his successful online comedy sketches, later he had his own project on Adult Swim, on American television, which is the Laughter Squad comedy show that we are going to watch in the following slide. So humor is also an important aspect of Tyler's career. So you can see how complex the arc of his career is.
Is it my nigga Jack? Hey, Jack. This my nigga Jack. Yeah, he did his thing, made the cameo in the video for all the hoes out there. Niggas know we about to, it's a wrap.
And now, the world premiere of She Want a Young Nigga.
Young nigga.
Bitch ass niggas, I'ma you up when I see you, nigga. I got the mother rocket launcher. I'm aiming at y'all bitch ass heads, nigga. I'm killing all y'all niggas.
Young nigga got guns, young nigga pack kush, young nigga smoke blunts. I hit a nigga in his neck, aim can't miss, got bazookas on deck. My pasta be expensive, money be extensive, bitches on my dick, nigga, I don't give a f***. And a nigga got tucks, Gucci this, Gucci that. Gucci shake they little booty when they see me in my coochie suit. Young nigga, bitches want a young nigga, bitches be like.
Yeah, so not only comedy sketches are very important for his success, but also more serious aspects of his music, such as the vulnerable and very open texts that he has in his music, but also the shock value aesthetic of his music videos that we are going to approach in the next slides. And once again, just to remind you, we had a content warning slide at the beginning of the presentation, because the next music videos are something else for sure. But chapter 3 and 4, they are interconnected as well, because I read 3 of his very iconic music videos as interconnected. I'm not claiming that Tyler said that, he never said that, it's just my own interpretation of these 3 music videos. And that's why the name of chapter 3 is Yonkers, which was his breakthrough on the internet as an internet phenomenon. And the name of that chapter is The Beginning of a Possible Music Video Trilogy, okay? And that trilogy continues with Buffalo and Find Your Wings. And I don't think I'm wrong in that interpretation, because I had the privilege when I was just a PhD student in Ireland to interview Luis Panch Perez by email. He was very kind and generous with me. And Luis Panch is basically the director of photography for most of Tyler's music videos, okay? And in that interview, which is in my book as well, he states that Tyler likes to create dialogues with his artistic work. So I do think that Tyler did that intentionally, you know, the interconnection between those 3 music videos. And just to give you an example, Yonkers, for instance, opens with Tyler as the Tinker stereo and ends in a fictional hanging. That paradox is very interesting, and not by chance, the opening line of the song is I am a F walking paradox, and I have a discussion on that in my book as well. And Buffalo, that was released like 4 years after, it starts with Tyler being hanged from a tree and chased by a spectral black lynching mob. And chapter 4 is by far the most complex chapter of my book, because I have a deep discussion on what that means, why Tyler is doing that, what type of debate he's trying to provoke with that music video, and not by chance Buffalo and Find the Wings, because they were released as one-piece video. This is very common hip-hop. Sometimes they put 2 songs together and release as one video. So Buffalo and Find the Wings were released together. And Tyler, after a few months releasing that music video on his YouTube channel, he decided to remove it. And he never gave any explanation on that. We don't know why. We imagine it's because it's too controversial, you know, but as far as I know, he never gave any explanation on that. And finally, Find the Wings looks very funny, looks lighter, you know, it's not as such like a punch in the face like Yonkers and Buffalo. And I have a discussion on why Tyler ends that possible trilogy with a funnier video as well. But anyway, Even Do is a parody of the iconic TV show Soul Train. We need to think about the significance of that show in America, because it was a big achievement for Black Americans in the history of Black television in the US. And I also have a discussion on why Tyler is making a parody of that show, especially after the very controversial material of Buffalo. Okay? Now we're going to watch 2 excerpts of Yonkers, and I try to keep it short and not too shocking. I hope I was able to achieve that with these 2 excerpts, but just to give you an idea on what I'm talking about. And of course, this music video is one of Tyler's most watched music videos to this day. It was a huge sensation on the internet. Actually, it was through this music video that I discovered Tyler, through MTV Brazil. In Brazil, we also have MTV broadcast channel. And they had like a very short clip of Yonkers one day, and I saw like 5 seconds of the video, and I was so impressed and also impacted by his charismatic persona that I decided to search about him on the internet, and from that point I became a huge fan of his music. And this is the music video.
With a fucking triceratops, reptar, rapping as I'm mocking deaf rock stars, wearing synthetic wigs made of anwars, dreadlocks, bedrock, harder than a motherfucking Flintstone, making crack rocks out of pussy nigga fish bones. This nigga Jasper tryna get grown, about 5'7" of his bitches in my bedroom. Swallow the cinnamon, I'ma scribble this shit and shit while Sid is telling me that she's been getting intimate with Ben Sid. Shut the fuck up. Here's the number to my therapist. You tell him all your problems, he's fucking awesome with listening.
And then he obviously threw up, but I decided to cut that scene. Okay, so before I comment about the first couple of verses, I think it's also important to say something that Luis Punch Perez told me during the interview. He told me that he felt that when he met Tyler, that this video Yonkers was God sent. Because Luis Punch Perez worked with many renowned hip-hop artists, not only Tyler. Before Tyler, he worked with Busta Rhymes and people like that, very famous rappers, even before Tyler. He's a little bit older than Tyler. And he said it was a God-sent video for him because he was tired of producing always the same type of mainstream hip-hop videos, which once again, they are generally connected to gangster-related stereotypes. And just like I had that impression that Tyler was very different when I was watching this music video in Brazil, Luis Perez said some very similar things when he met Tyler for the first time. He felt that there was something special about his music, you know, and he was very happy for producing this music video because it's very minimalistic. It seems they recorded that music video in few hours, and that was it. And it was very cheap as well. The budget was very small, but it was very creative at the same time. And this is the final scene, the hanging scene.
To read them, snap back, green chia fucking leaves. It's been a couple months and Tina still ain't perma fucking weave. Damn.
And I have to say that because it's part of my book and my study on his music. Of course, that his hanging scene, I make a connection not only to the suicidal ideations that appears in his early lyrics, but also to the history of racial hatred in the US. So I think it's a reference to that as well, especially because there is a continuation in terms of narrative between Yonkers and Buffalo that we're going to watch in the next slide. And before I move on, it's also interesting that even though during Yonkers, Tyler didn't came out as a queer artist yet, there are some elements in the lyrics that are very interesting, because he says that Sid, formerly known as Sid the Kid, was sleeping with men in the first couple of verses, even though she was the only woman and openly queer member in the early days of Odd Future. And this is very interesting because later they had discussion about it, like Sid was very disappointed with the group when she realized that the group was capitalizing on that fact to justify all the homophobia and misogyny in their music, saying like, oh no, we are not homophobic and misogynistic because we have a woman that is queer in our group. And that created a division in the group over time. And it's also interesting that Frank Ocean, that came out before Tyler, and later Tyler came out as a queer artist as well, highlights the complexity of the group, because at the same time that they started with very homophobic and misogynistic lyrics, they had at least 3 queer members in that group. So that's very interesting, and I have some comments on that in my book as well. Okay, now Buffalo, once again, by far his most shocking video, but I think it's important for the discussion, for what I'm talking about, especially regarding the continuity between these 3 music videos. And while you watch it, I will stop the video in the middle to comment on some things, okay? But just to give you an idea on why I think those 3 music videos can be interconnected, I'll show you this excerpt of Buffalo and then an excerpt of Find the Winds, all right?
Tickle Peter Parker, pick a pack of peppers when a plot thick and solid. A creative fucking kill you with a popsicle. Cold-blooded, so we rock mittens so they won't find him. Not kidding, keep the Tommy on me, bitch, I miss pickles. Said I seem off, last time the team talked. Was sick of making niggas cabbage, so I took the cream off. Should've bought some stock in it.
I get it, we're stock in it.
Not a golf one, the little homies don't wait. Let's weigh my options. I bought me a mansion, I bought some attention, and giving them the Hobson. The dear boy Swatkins, why you mad? It's the slaving me. It's facts, boy. I'm back like Rosa Parks. Leave favorite seat. Videos, stage dives, pop-ups. They watching team. While y'all niggas watching the throne be watching me.
If you fuck this up, there are so many fucking kids right now listening to this guy. Get those wings flapping, motherfucker! Cause this kid's ready to fucking
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Nigga on the wall. Rap bars, jail bars, die, shoot a basketball. Tyler the dark skin, arrested and ousted. Cops knew who I was cause these kids at the show was awesome. How many leaders in the house? Well, can't somebody bring the mirrors out? I'm getting lonely. Likes and apologies and snaps make it obvious that everybody on this fucking planet lacking confidence. How many leaders in the house?
Yeah, so there are many things to be said just about this excerpt. As I said, chapter 4 is by far the most challenging and complex chapter of my book, but there are some things that I want to address. One of the main messages of that music video, at least according to my own interpretation as the author of the book, relates to survival guilty, especially considering that Tyler, the Creator, is a very successful Black American rapper, music producer, fashionist, and entrepreneur. So there are many reasons why he would discuss that in that music video. It talks about Black leadership as well, as you can see in the lyrics, and that very challenging final scene as well. There is a very interesting element that I see in this video is that the Black lynching mob looks more like a projection from his own mind than an actual Black lynching mob. The way they look doesn't look very real. They have that spectral element on them, and also they never end up reaching out to him in the music video, even if they could, because he stops to smoke a cigarette and they do nothing to him. So I have a discussion on that in the book as well. So it's more about something in his own head. And this goes back to 2 scholars I was explaining earlier in my presentation, which is Frantz Fanon with his book Black Skin, White Masks, and Du Bois with his concept of double consciousness, because both concepts relates to the psychological impact of racial dynamics and racism as well. And I think that music video speaks volumes about it. And of course, I need to comment on the final scene, because when he vanishes the white paint from his face, there is a fake blackness underneath that whiteness. So this is a reference to blackface minstrelsy. And when I reach the conclusions, I'm going to talk about it, because it's very interesting to see how an avant-garde hip-hop artist like Tyler is creating this historical connection with, like, let's say, old scholars, because like that book, The Souls of Black Folk, was written more than 100 years ago, but it's very relevant to discuss music videos like that. And Black Skin, White Masks by Frantz Fanon was written in the early 50s. But anyway, both books works pretty well to discuss avant-garde hip-hop productions like this one. And after Buffalo, we have Find the Wings with a very different approach. But anyway, I do think Tyler is trying to create a debate about some things that he already did with Buffalo. And it's interesting because in the actual album, in the actual song, Roy Ayers collaborated with Tyler, and that music video is a parody of Roy Ayers' performance in the very iconic TV show Soul Train. So, as I said earlier, Tyler really likes to create dialogue with his audiovisual and musical productions as well.
It's a beautiful thing. And I mean, you got all these instruments, man.
Oh man, yeah, I just wanna just show everybody that, hey, man, I love music. You know, they try to pigeonhole me in this rap box, and it's just like, no, man, I love sound. And Roy Ayers is on the original, on the album, but he couldn't make it today, but he's in our spirits.
And tell me the name of the song that you're gonna be performing today.
The composition we will be performing today is called Find Your Wings.
Find Your Wings, that's a nice name. Tell me the inspiration, man.
Oh man, I just wanted, you know, to make something that inspires people. Hey, if you're having a bad day, it's okay. Don't run it off. You a bird. You're supposed to fly.
All right.
Yes.
This is Tyler the Creator, everybody.
Yes.
Give it up, baby.
As you can see, the vibes between both music videos are completely different, and even from a musical perspective, is completely different. And once again, this is related to the idea of paradox that's very strong in the musical work of Tyler, the creator. And I'm not going to discuss that today, just to keep it simple. But in my book, I even make a connection between the musical composition of Find the Wings with the composition of Searching, because I don't think they are that different, you know. Like both songs have that very soulful vibe, very light, and this is the case of Roy Ayers' Searching performance at the Soul Train TV show back in the late 70s.
Let's welcome a very exciting group of performers led by one of the most talented jazzmen in the business. It's a song called Searchin', taken from the latest album on Polydor entitled Vibrations. A great welcome, gang, for Roy Ayers and Ubiquity.
Yeah, just a small excerpt, just to show how like the vibes of the songs are similar, and the scenario between the music videos are similar as well. But in my book, I have a deeper discussion on those similarities. Okay, so now we achieve the final chapter, Sorry Not Sorry, in which I go deeper in that attempt of Tyler in creating dialogues. in his music videos, and that's very interesting because in these music videos we see multiple versions of Tyler on screen, which kind of confirms what Luis Panche Perez told me during the interview. And also in terms of lyrics, is a very interesting song because it was the perfect chance for me to wrap up discussions on race, gender, sexuality, and the dialogue between his personas and music videos as well. And another interesting fact about that chapter in the musical work of Tyler, the Creator more broadly, is that even though he was able to progress so much in terms of narratives, paradoxes are something that persists in his musical work. Because that music video starts in a very light manner, in a very accessible manner, and ends up in a violent scene in which one of his personas beats to death the rest of his past versions displayed in that music video. And it's also interesting that that final violent scene is interrupted by a retro-style jingle evoking post-war US commercials, which once again reduces violence to an aesthetic device, just like in his Odd Future era. So at the same time that he was able to progress a lot, that paradox between lightness and heaviness continued to be strong in his musical work. And I'll show you just two excerpts of this music video to give you an idea on what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't see you more. I'm sorry that the 4 minutes where you see a song could feel like a chore. Since I'm sorry I'm your kin. Sorry we ain't close as we should have been. Sorry to my old friends, stories we could have wrote if our egos didn't take the pen. Sorry to the freaks I let on. Who thought their life was gonna change cause I gave them head on, but instead I sped off. Yeah, I know I'm dead wrong. Sorry to the guys I had to hide. Sorry to the girls I had to lie to, who ain't need to know if I was by the lake switching ties to. Anyway, I don't wanna talk.
And then at the end, we have that final violent scene.
Moments of feeling great, so they aimed up, duck, and shot right back. Sorry, not sorry. I got 2 words. Fuck 'em.
And in the book, I discuss the sonic dichotomies as well, because the mood of the beats changes a lot when that violent scene comes, and then is again interrupted by a very light sound of that, like, I don't know, maybe airline commercial or something like that, that jingle-like tune that appears at the end of the music video. And something that's very important to be said as well is that Tyler, at the beginning of his career, he stated in an interview with Larry King that he wanted to step away from the music industry to become a filmmaker because he felt that he didn't want to have his legacy related to hip-hop, mainly because he was always very against the gangster-related stereotypes connected to hip-hop music. And when he wanted to be a filmmaker, he said that one of his greatest inspirations was Quentin Tarantino, that also explored hyper-violence in his films a lot. So it's not by chance that that element also appears in the music videos of Tyler, the Creator. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. Don't leave yet. You have a chance to earn a free copy of my book. We have a short Q&A session before we wrap up. And before we do that, I want to offer some views on the conclusion of my book. So first of all, the most interesting thing that I found researching the musical work of Tyler, the Creator, is to see that connection between avant-garde hip-hop and historical issues, or even like historical scholarly works, as I was talking about Frantz Fanon and Du Bois, how both things, like something very contemporary, could be connected to something that would be considered somewhat old. So it seems that society progressed a lot, but some things didn't change enough yet. And this is something that I explore in the conclusion of my book. And when I approach very briefly his album Chromacopia, as I said earlier in the introduction of the book, sorry, no, on chapter 1 actually, I start saying that as I write the final lines of this book, Tyler is releasing his new album Chromacopia, so I'm not going to be able to cover material from that album. But anyway, I comment on that on my book, that I found very interesting that as soon as he positioned himself as a queer artist, he was able to leave behind all that problematic discourses from his early career, but not only that, but also be able to collaborate with many contemporary women rappers, like Glorilla, Dolce, Sexy Red, and Santi Gold as well. Unfortunately, to this day, in the mainstream of American hip-hop, it's not that common to see men rappers collaborating with women rappers. I know that women collaborate a lot with rappers, but generally when they do that, they come as R&B singers and soul singers singing the chorus of rap songs. But as rappers per se, is not that common. And I found very progressive that in Chromacopia, Tyler was able to push the envelope forward, which is very good for us hip-hop fans and hip-hop culture more broadly. And of course, like one of the through lines, like one of the main discussions of my book is how artists of color, they have to navigate certain stereotypes and constraints within the music industry, and this is not new at all. This has been happening since the success of gangster rap in the late 80s. Okay, so which part of Tyler's trajectory and the book analysis did you find most interesting and why? I can select some people and see that.
I think my favorite part was the analysis of the 3 music videos. I've never made that connection myself. And I think a lot of the visual imagery that I never noticed, I've never seen that clip from Buffalo. I never was around in time to see it. So I found that really interesting. And I was just listening to Find Your Wings on the way here, actually. So seeing that visually represented was very interesting. And then I think along with that, I find that the way those videos represent his coming out as queer and shift from more hyper masculine versus like homophobic content as a way to garner attention, as opposed to just building his own reputation from his musical production and the more mature and vulnerable themes that he was getting after.
Very good answer. Charles.
Congratulations, Gustavo. For me, the takeaway actually was Tyler's effort in engaging in historical discourse and then, pulling over that into this contemporary world now, so that in the end, he blends, history and then what is actually happening in contemporary times. For me, that was the takeaway. So that in so doing, I see that he's also telling us at this moment in time that modernity is not necessarily constructed by, notions of, just scientific, technological innovations. That's okay, but also probably rather an interaction of probably tradition and even history, discourses of history and contemporary. That's what I get away from this. Thank you.
That's very good, but you are a professor, so I was expecting something very good from you. Yeah. Who else? Tony, please.
For me personally, it was very interesting to hear you speak from your perspective, being somebody who's not from here, and hasn't grown up immersed in the hip hop community and black culture. I feel personally, as a black person who grew up here in Ann Arbor, and also being a queer person, I have a lot of parallels with his experience, and I feel like those things make you the type of artist who just wants to be yourself authentically, and you showed that with this presentation. Tyler is somebody who is unapologetically himself. And like you mentioned, he is very open with himself and his experience, not only as a black creator, but as a black creator experiencing the suburbs and growing up not totally immersed in a stereotypical black community.
Okay, I can take one more. Jose?
Thank you. Got a lot of fans here. All right, I'm gonna give it a shot. Okay, even though it was a little brief, I thought the connection to Quentin Tarantino is really interesting, because I see a lot of connections in some of the things that you've talked about, whether it's the racial dynamics or even the masculine dynamics. But I'm also struck by the criticism Tarantino has within the black community, despite Tyler using him. So I think that's just yet another example of the double consciousness in action, where he's getting his influences from is a lot more, it's not, forgive the pun, black and white. He's very open to using any sort of media available to him, which I think, again, goes back to that idea of, like, he's not positioning himself as one or the other. He's trying to position himself really strongly as being this really intermedia, interracial, intergender artist. I mean, and it's even in his name as Tyler the Creator, not Tyler the Rapper.
Yes, I think his stage name is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. All the answers. You have one more or no? Okay, so I will go with Tony. I really. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much. I'm very happy that I wasn't expecting so many people, so I'm super, super glad to see everyone here. And thank you so much. That's it. Thank you.
There are additional copies of the book for sale just outside in the hallway.